maybe we'll go with Craig Jones because that's fresh in my memory. Yeah, so if you haven't heard, Craig Jones become the intergender. Is it intergender that they're calling it? The
Yeah.
intergender world champion of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which, as you can see on the screen now, he beat, I can't remember her name, Gabby
Gabby
Garcia.
Garcia.
Luckily, I could see it there. Who's a beast of a lady, by the way. Like, she'd probably beat most men, to be fair.
9-time world champion. Absolutely phenomenal.
And I mean, part of me thinks, is the many 6'4" women out there she's competing against? Like,
right.
So I don't know if it's almost like the Tyson Fury thing of like, yeah, she's good, but would someone the same size with the same fingers do as well? You know what I mean? So
I do. Yeah.
There's a lot of that to it. I'm not gonna try and sit here and act like I'm a BJJ expert because you know this is actually the first full grappling fight I've ever watched in my life. To be honest, like I've watched clips and highlights, but I've never watched one in full. You know.
Well, I think if there was any sport, and I think I spoke about this a little bit on my own video, if there's any sport to where men versus women makes sense, it would be something like jiu-jitsu, because it's not about strength or size, it's about technique and positioning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, sure, strength and size play a part, but it's not like the core tenet, you know, positioning over everything, basically.
So if there's... Go on, sorry. Carry on.
No, I was saying, so if there's anything that would kind of bridge that gap, man, woman, intergender, I think that's where you would start, would be like a jiu-jitsu tournament. And I think Craig Jones is a freaking crazy person for wanting to pull this off. And I think it was great for the MMA community. I really do.
I love the quote that he says, where he has a quote where he's like, to be a world champion at most sports, you have to have the right mix of autism and steroids. And I find that funny because I do believe that in a sense, like you have to have that like that tunnel vision focus, like to
absolutely.
Especially like him, because he's from Adelaide in Australia, and that's like one of the least populated cities out there. So he literally come from nothing, where a lot of the Brazilians and Americans, they have like black belts they can train. Like for instance, my cousin lives in Spain. He's training jiu-jitsu with Brazilians right now, so he's probably getting trained under black belts, you know what I mean? So like he didn't have access to that, so I find that incredible as well.
Yeah,
like,
coming from the smaller town, I always find that interesting, the people who are kind of outsiders who stay outsiders and kind of master that craft. Like, how much better could he possibly be if he did get that world-class training?
So that's it. If he grew up in Brazil or USA, where like it was more prominent, like he'd probably beat Gordon Ryan by now, you know what I mean? Like maybe, I don't know.
A beast.
I don't watch him, but I've heard he's like the John Jones of jiu-jitsu. So like all what I know him for is that he's boring. Like, that's the one thing that everyone says about him, is that he's boring and he's a bit of a psycho. Yeah, but you have to be, don't you? Like look at John Jones, look at Tyson Fury, look at Mike Tyson. Like you can look at football players like Maradona, Gascoigne. They all have that bit of crazy about them, you know what I mean?
And for American honest, you have Michael Jordan. He was fucking known to be like super overly intense and like kind of crazy. So I think you do have to have, and I'm going to tie it back to the YouTuber thing. I think you have to have that mentality, that psychopath fucking mentality. I think it's how it's all tying together, but you have to have that to be successful.
And kind of talking about, sorry to cut you off, but kind of bring it back to the YouTube thing, like the way our Craig Jones has done this, I think is real clever, because everyone got paid 10 grand and $1 to compete, right? And that's the highest prize you get in the best jiu-jitsu tournament in the world. I forget what it's called. And I found that really interesting, because he's saying he's got a sugar daddy that can afford to help him out, and literally all that you have to do is enter it and you'll get paid more than if you win the whole tournament.
All these other tournaments,
and then to talk about kind of psychopathic, sociopathic, he hosted it on the same night as the other one, which I found interesting. I kind of hope he got more streams and stuff and he made more money back. And to me, it caught my attention and I watched it, and I can't even remember the name of the actual jiu-jitsu tournament. Is it ADCC, something like that?
The big jiu-jitsu tournament, the ADCC.
Yeah. And I think that goes to show how good he is at promoting. Like, he's so good at promoting things and kind of being relatable to people, to where even me that doesn't like jiu-jitsu much wanted to watch that, wanted to like get involved with it.
And I think that's the appeal of some of these weirder, the offshoot promotions and stuff. Like, we talked about this kind of a little bit, but like the celebrity boxing and like the MMA crossover boxing, it's the sideshow kind of appeal, like a circus, but like professional, if that makes sense.